One of the biggest concerns with talking about various topics online is whether your opinion actually means anything if you're not properly qualified to speak on it. Well, I wasted my life by getting a degree in IT, so I'm actually very qualified to speak on this one. I will say, please ignore the fact that I'm speaking over BioShock footage. I needed something visual. I don't really want to scare people by putting my face out there, and as I already needed this footage for a video I'm working on, I just decided to throw it in. You cannot make this up. I just sat down to record this. Like, I haven't added this in, you can tell because it's unscripted. As soon as I start talking on this, I get a Discord message with this. Fucking hell, you can't make it up. Recently, the Science, Innovation and Technology Committee, or S.I.T, held a discussion on whether social media should be banned for under 16s in the UK. As someone that doesn't use social media, I can still see how it's become an important part of day-to-day life for many millions of people worldwide, being a way for people to hear news, to challenge their political and ideological beliefs, and to learn and grow as people. Multiple political parties are currently looking to lower the age to vote to 16, so a social media ban would effectively remove a large amount of access to conflicting opinions, effectively disallowing younger voters from having a proper, informed opinion on the politics that they're supposed to vote on. I would also like to say that I personally have both first and second-hand experience in how unfettered access to strangers and the internet can be absolutely damaging to a child. I'm approaching this from the most well-informed, well-meaning position that I can. I'm looking to address the lack of understanding that's driving opinions, the security that's at risk of being thrown away, and the extremely vulnerable dependence the UK government has on mass surveillance monster Palantir. Well, what is the S.I.T? They're a committee that examines the expenditure, administration and policies of the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, DSIT, which is a governmental body. Essentially, the S.I.T is appointed by Parliament to assess DSIT and to influence governmental policies by highlighting issues and suggesting reforms. Having said that, it's clear that the S.I.T needs to be up-to-date and well-informed on the topics that they discuss and scrutinise over, and they need to debate with equally well-informed representatives. In the discussion, there was one very adept member, Dr. Alison Gardner. She was asking important, impactful questions, but unfortunately, she was asking them to people unqualified on the necessary topics that were, in my opinion, only looking to push towards their own agenda. I think this is the most well-known situation from the discussion, and it just highlights exactly what I mean.
The same conversation.
The social media definition, can I pin you down? Because this is a huge area. You said you don't want to ban from the internet, but I've given some examples where actually that what would not be classified as social media could be classified as delivering harms. So, social media, what do you mean? How do you see a ban?
So it's more age gating, raising the age. The technicality of defining what constitutes social media and how does AI fit in, how does gaming fit in, well, it needs a broad scope and a list of definitions so that you can go in and target who is potentially in breach. Those decisions need to be made, but that can be made within the remit of the raise the age. It can involve all user-to-user messaging, so that might be through Fortnite, Coldplay, Line of Duty, all those sorts of things, Minecraft, anything where strangers can access our children. That user-to-user definition does actually cross the divide over various AI, gaming, social media platforms. I'm a doctor, so this is out of my lane, but we must be able to figure that out.
Also in this discussion, the gentleman on the left, Frank Young, tries to use polling data that was collected before the Online Safety Act came into effect to justify his position, while trying to disallow or disagree with the use of pre-OSA polling data against his own position.
A survey said 50% of parents just would not comply with this ban, and so you would create an in and out group of those that have access and those haven't. Huge issues with bullying there. And also, what's your opinion on parents putting their children on social media, aka, you know, influencers using their children for that purpose? If a child can't access social media, should parents be allowed to put their children on social media?
Okay, all right. You know, there has to be a freedom for parents to make their own decisions. I might make a different decision to another parent. I think on the point of parents not complying with any ban, I think that data was taken at a point of time where, you know, a ban hasn't been enacted, and polling will only ever tell you what people think right now. It is a snapshot. I think once you change the culture around and expectations around social media, you will start to see a change in behaviour.
When you present polling as evidence for a ban, you can't then negate polling as evidence where a ban might not work. I think anybody though who conducts polling for a living, as a mechanism, will understand the sort of parameters within which it sits, and this applies to voting intention polls, for example, in the same conversation.
There has to be a freedom for parents to make their own decisions, and pre-ban polling data proves our position. But you can't use pre-ban polling data to argue against our position, because that only shows what life was like before we took the poll. So much of these debates and these discussions, there's a lot of words that are being said, but there's nothing substantive, as well as the data that they're using isn't up to date. There is no meaning to what's being said. They're just pretending to give answers so that nobody can look into their views and their data, point out the flaws, because once you point out the flaws, you poke holes, and a ship full of holes is likely to sink. Now, I'm sorry to be doubting the intelligence of any viewers, but I do find it rather pertinent to explain that Coldplay is a rock band from London. You know, the massive titans of the music industry, a name known by all, most recently in the public zeitgeist for ruining an affair. Line of Duty is, as I understand it, a BBC police procedural show. It might seem pedantic or facetious to mock a mistake like that, but it's indicative that the people having these discussions don't know a single thing about what they're debating. To say that social media can be narrowed down by user-to-user communication, and then list things like ChatGPT, which the entire focus is that you're not interacting with a human, or, to name a fucking rock band, it shows a detachment from the facts in order to espouse personal opinion. User-to-user communication is way too broad, and it is essential to clarify what's being targeted and what is intended before you can possibly begin to think about how to enact the changes you're looking for. Age-gating any and all user-to-user communication would mean that I have to verify my age just to be able to book a dental appointment. I would have to verify my identity with the government just to be able to send my own mother a funny image of a cat. Another discussion in a similar area states how,
as I said, the first duty of any government is to keep its citizens safe. In real life, a 12-year-old can't go see a film at a cinema if it's rated 15. Pornography is put on the top shelf at the newsagents, out of reach. Kids can't buy a video game that is adult-only, rated without ID. But online, our kids can find any kind of graphic or sexual content of any level of extremity as easily as texting their friends. The Online Safety Act is there to protect everyone.
While correct that children aged 12 can't buy films rated 15+, or to go see them in cinemas, there's no legislation that legally prohibits parents from allowing their children under 15 to view 15+ films. As the government's own website states, BBFC ratings provide consumers information they need to make informed choices about what their children watch. The onus is on the parents to make sure that their children are safe and consuming appropriate content, not to make every childless adult responsible for the safety and the actions of children that they have nothing to do with. Ofcom are repeatedly trying to impose their rules onto companies and organisations outside of the UK in what is essentially, in my opinion again, just a shakedown racket. To think that the UK should be able to impose their rules on a different country, turn it on its head. Imagine if Saudi Arabia told us as a country that because Sharia law disallows homosexuality, that anyone guilty of homosexual acts were to be beheaded, or that anyone suspected of homosexual acts were to be arrested. Or if an Argentinian power company told the UK that they're not allowed to use nuclear weapons, they're not allowed to use nuclear energy. If either one of those two scenarios sounds unacceptable, then it is unacceptable for Ofcom to be able to work outside of the UK's jurisdiction to charge multi-million pound fines that go back into Ofcom's pocket and the government's treasury. There's a certain sentiment that
if you want to overturn the Online Safety Act, you are on the side of predators, not those who want to keep children safe.
Or that they're just paid by people who want to prey on kids. It's ironic that he talks about people not operating in good faith, yet he can't argue in good faith. He uses ad hominem, the strawman fallacy, false dichotomy, and an appeal to motion to try and shut down disagreement. Logical fallacies are terrible to use because they divert the conversation from truth and objective positions to just manipulate people's emotions, and all it does is serve to inflame unproductive debate. I'd like to point out that Mark has a law degree from the University of Houston Law Center and an undergraduate degree in philosophy from the University of Chicago. Yet his argument against data concerns is to call everybody that disagrees with him either a paedophile or an enabler. Anyway, let's do what he couldn't be bothered to do and actually assess the situation, because it's not just a binary thing. In order to see age-gated content on Discord, you had to verify your age. However, Discord itself doesn't verify, so it used the age assurance provider Persona. Basically, you would open Discord, they would say, you need to verify your age, but we don't keep any of the biometric data. Discord then took the data that users provided, they sent it to Persona, who essentially subcontracted various companies such as Anthropic, Amazon, the other 15 members of this list, to process the personal data of the user, and those companies are then allowed to retain user data for legitimate interest and to continue to provide a service. That means that someone rightfully expecting one or possibly two companies to deal with their personal data instead had it split across nearly 20, all of which are a personal security liability themselves, and which a user couldn't have rightfully consented to the processing of their data by these sub-processors. Well, Discord stopped using Persona, so let's take a look at a couple other age verification platforms. AI age verification service ID Merit had a data leak that leaked 1 billion personal records, and I'm sorry, that's such a massive number, I want to reiterate how terrible that is. There's only around 8 billion people alive right now. From the start of humanity up until, by rough estimations, the year of our Lord 1804, the world hadn't managed a population of 1 billion. This ID Merit leak had full names, addresses, date of birth, mobile number, email, every single detail a person would need to steal an identity or to track somebody. Shortly after, Enfuta had a data breach containing full social security numbers as well as the previously stated data. Once again, the exact details a person would need to commit identity fraud or worse. Just recently, the British company Yoti has been fined €950,000, almost €1 million, for 3 distinct GDPR violations, including data on kids as young as 13 years old. This is a clear, repeated example of why age verification and age assurance is a risk to all that use it, introducing unnecessary harm to our children and potentially putting their very personal, identifying information into the hands of bad actors and threats to their well-being. Normally, I'd act coy, but I won't even pretend that we can trust the government to keep our data secure when they couldn't keep the data of tens of thousands of Afghans secure. Those being the Afghans that helped the UK during the US-Afghan War on Terror, as well as the family members of those Afghans. More recently, the government website for maintaining the official register of companies in the UK, Company House, had a vulnerability that allowed a person with valid login credentials for one company to view and potentially change sensitive details of literally any other company without requiring any authorization. The British government and the S.I.T cannot classify what it is they want to ban. They can't keep people's personal data secure, and yet they want to ban anything they don't like with impunity and pretend that their plans are flawless and harmless. At the same time, they want to impose a ban on VPNs, as if a VPN was some evil, malicious tool of agony and despair. Even though it's not a ban in name, to a privacy-conscious user, it pretty much could be. A VPN is a tool for security, much like a bicycle lock. If I were to take a bike lock and hit someone over the head with it, that would be a crime, and I would deserve to be punished for it. But that wouldn't mean that everyone else that owned a bike lock were some heinous criminal with intent to cause harm. Let's take a quick look at NordVPN. This video isn't sponsored, I'm way too small for that. It's a service that I have personally used before. Given that the main focus of this channel has been gaming content, it's clear that I've spent a lot of time playing games. And even to this day, the largest gaming franchise in the world, Call of Duty. Many COD games are still extremely unsafe to play online. They've had security flaws that have allowed bad actors to see people's IP addresses and to inject malicious files onto people's computers. Just the IP address alone can narrow someone down to the city that they're in, and the ability to rat somebody's computer can give them access to your exact location, all of your passwords, your banking information, anything and everything that you hold dear. I'm not saying that a VPN would solve all those issues by itself, in the same way that my immune system won't entirely stop a common cold from making me sick. It is one part of a battery of tools and protections to minimize risk. Nord also provides the option of an antivirus suite, scanning files you download, blocking internet trackers, warning you if a website is scam, fraud, or contains malware. In fact, please take a look at this image. I can't exactly provide you with a source for this because, well, I am that source from when I first looked into age assurance vendors. Allpass Trust, one of the largest, most common age assurance providers, and my VPN is warning me before I've had a chance to even click on its link that they've detected malware on the page. The official website. If you've ever discussed a topic with someone, maybe you're planning to go on holiday to Barbados, or you're thinking of buying a specific item, and then you see that you're getting ads for the thing that you were talking about, that's because companies are legally allowed to spy on you and listen to your phone or your computer's microphone to find things that they can sell to you. A reasonable person cannot believe a company's claim to not use microphones to listen to users when the same companies have been fined repeatedly for collecting unnecessary data in unlawful ways, like the Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal. I have personally seen evidence that points towards microphones being used to further advertise to people, although I can't find my source, so I understand if you don't wish to take me at my word on this claim. Even if you've never been to Facebook, you've never touched Instagram, you've never even thought about accessing or utilizing a Facebook or a Meta service, if a random website were to embed an image or an advert from Facebook, then Facebook is legally allowed to track your browsing history and habits without ever gaining your consent. This giant banner on the side, the social media icons under the garlic bread, those can track you regardless, identify who you are, and sell the data that they have on you to other companies or governments. As in governments separate to the country that you live in. There's a bunch of services that offer tracker blocking to stop a company having free reign of your data like that without your express consent, and VPN providers often do give this kind of service. From the area of protect the kids, it doesn't make sense for the government to be so solely focused on the internet. You can ask anyone, but it seems today that all you see is violence in movies and sex on TV. But where are those good old-fashioned values on which we used to rely? There's loads of risks and negative impacts that children should be shielded from, like Time magazine's top 100 most influential person and Billboard's Woman of the Year, Cardi B. A rapper that in her earlier years would take people sexually interested in her, drug them, and then rob them. In 2024, she said about the situation, "Why do you all keep writing Cardi drugged, whatever, robbed men, other crap? So what? I'll do it again, bitch. I don't give a fuck. I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad for no fellas. I'll do it the fuck again. And you'll think you're gagging? I talk about that shit on my album too. I don't give a fuck." With a female role model like that, surely the British government should be livid over the influence she has. You can see tits on TV from like 8 PM. I once accidentally saw a guy fucking a watermelon on TV when I was a kid. And TV certainly hasn't got any better in that regard. Every couple of months, my poor mother has to go back through and remove all of the adult TV channels that have somehow returned. Why wouldn't an inability to permanently remove porn channels from TVs be addressed with the same fervour as access to social media or adult content? While you consider the things that I've said so far, I ask you allow me to share a quick history lesson. America 1919 brought in the prohibition of the production, the importation, the transportation, and the sale of alcoholic beverages in an attempt to heal what the prohibitionists saw as an ill society beset by alcohol-related problems such as alcoholism, domestic violence, and saloon-based political corruption. As history can tell us, it didn't stop anything, it didn't heal society, it just pushed the consumption of alcohol underground, sometimes literally. Illegal speakeasies, many of which were operated by members of organised crime groups, didn't care who was buying or how old they were, as long as they were getting paid. The highest homicide rate in the United States in the first half of the 20th century occurred during the years of Prohibition and decreased immediately after Prohibition ended. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre in Chicago, believed to be retaliation for bootlegged whiskey being stolen, caused the locals to reach the conclusion that a line had been crossed, that the violence had become too much to bear, that the experiment known as Prohibition had blown up once and for all. This goes to show that Prohibition did nothing to heal society or to protect anybody. It just pushed crime underground to areas that couldn't be touched by regulations, and the only thing it helped was to finance criminal gangs in their operations. The parallels are so obvious that it would be insulting to your intelligence to even try and explain them. This next segment is going to sound slightly conspiratorial, but I ask that you stay with me here. With how easily and frequently people are having their data leaked in public breaches, it just goes to show the kinds of information and behavioural patterns that the government wants on citizens. Making parents aware of internet service providers' parental control suites and putting the responsibility and safety of a child onto their legal guardian is the cheaper, the easier, and the less intrusive option. But then, the government wouldn't be able to as easily locate dissenting opinion, political detractors, or political opposition, or to limit their reach. With services like Persona, their subcontractors, or even the government's less than mutual provider of mass surveillance, Palantir, every single aspect of your life is being boiled down to AI postulation and risks of precognition-style policing, looking to arrest someone for something they haven't yet committed. To quote Martin Wrigley, a separate S.I.T. member in a committee on data security across government. In recent weeks, I'm fairly sure we heard cabinet colleagues talking about Britain being Britain's best customer in tech solutions. We have heard about building sovereign AI capabilities, and yet we see Palantir being mandated to be used across the NHS in every acute community and mental health provider. Its existing solutions are to be thrown out. We have seen a £250 million contract extension with the MOD, because the General said it was not tech lock-in, it was just too difficult to replace them because it would have to redo all its tech, which is the definition of tech lock-in. Minister Jarvis, are you comfortable with the increasing prevalence of companies such as Palantir in the public sector, especially in sensitive areas of NHS and defence, let alone the trials going on with the police forces and used within the Cabinet Office as I understand it? Are you comfortable with that position? The response that this garnered is publicly accessible, so you can read it for yourself, but it essentially boiled down to Palantir is a long-standing investor in the United Kingdom. Actually, it represents a vote of confidence in the UK that we have companies that want to work with the UK government and want to invest in us as an entity. This will deliver very significant amounts of investment, which creates highly skilled jobs in the UK. It is not a vote of confidence to have a company like Palantir holding a monopoly on our infrastructure. It is not a vote of confidence when the co-founder and chairman of Palantir takes 20 seconds to answer, should humanity be allowed to survive?
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would,
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in this.
Should the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But
another section of this same committee states that we saw that the MOD contract, I think you told us, was looking at a lack of competition in some categories, and the MOD was not even looking elsewhere for an alternative. They can't replace the infrastructure because of tech lock-in. They're not looking for an alternative. Whether through negligence or intention, Palantir is anchored inside our deepest, most sensitive systems. In September of last year, an American police officer was quoted as saying, "You know, we have cameras in that town. You can't get a breath of fresh air in or out of that place without us knowing." This was when he used flock security cameras to wrongfully accuse a woman of stealing a package. You can't get a breath of fresh air without us knowing, and yet he went to harass someone that wasn't there, that wasn't involved in the situation, based off of a mistake made while using a mass surveillance tool. The UK's Human Rights Act of 1998 guarantees everybody the right to respect for their private and family life, home, and correspondence. It also protects individuals from interference by public authorities unless such interference is lawful and necessary in a democratic society. If I cannot go into the street and film people without their consent, if I cannot set up a security camera at my front door as a form of security, and it happens to see out into the street, because that camera would invade the privacy of the members of public that walk past, then why should it be legal for a company to spy on me and what I do? On top of that, the government cannot argue that their interference into our rights to privacy are necessary when there are other, less intrusive actions that could be taken, yet haven't been. That's not even mentioning that regardless of your political leanings and affiliations, many actions the current government have taken have been criticised by both sides of the aisle as undemocratic and authoritarian. They want to share data of UK citizens with the EU, a union that Britain, as a kingdom, democratically voted to leave. Actually, the current government wants to give so many different powers to European bodies that I've forgotten most of them. But a single party deciding to reverse an entire kingdom's democratic decision is a threat to the very fabric of British governance. They claim they want to protect children, and yet time and time again, child abusers and people taking advantage of our children are spared jail time. Saying one thing and then doing the other is not productive, it is not protective. It is problematic, no matter who it is. Every Wednesday, the Prime Minister goes into Parliament, and the ministers and the members of Parliament put forward questions to ask about his policies, the government's actions and the plans. 4 times he was asked about Peter Mandelson. 4 times he refused, he deflected. While British law gives a presumption of innocence until proven guilty, in this situation, for the Prime Minister, either he was told about the concerns and the risks, and he decided that it wasn't important enough, it wasn't essential for him to speak to Mandelson himself, or he was told about it, warned about it, he's spoken to Mandelson and decided that it's still okay. On the other hand, you've got a Labour councillor, someone that has argued in favour of the Online Safety Act, being sentenced over child sex offences for sending pornographic images of himself to someone that he believed to be a 13-year-old schoolgirl. With the risks that this poses to children, and not just children, but the risks this poses to everyone, including children, and then people that are putting forward towards it, which we can actually point to. We can say, this person here, what is this guy? Former councillor Liron Velleman, he's advocating for the Online Safety Act, and the outcome of the Online Safety Act, and the damages that it has caused is sensitive information of loads of people, including children. I don't want to be in the same situation as Mark Meadors. I'm not accusing everyone that supports the Online Safety Act a paedophile, because they're not. It's a small number, but it is there. And it is the dangers of the Online Safety Act and the actions that the government wants to take. Yes, children should be protected, but they should be able to use security tools to protect themselves. Removing their security in a misguided attempt is just going to lead them to more harm. It is either going to literally open them up to harm, as in data breaches, having their own information posted on the internet, or worse, or children and adults looking to get, it could be porn, it could be just like different opinions, but people looking for content that has been suppressed will look in less regulated areas, whether it be 4chan, which has, I'm not going to say it's a necessarily terrible place. It has some terrible history. You know, I sort of grew up on 4chan myself. Or it's going to push them to the dark web, to the areas that they can't control. The only actions that the police can do, once they're made aware of a dark web service that sells, just going to be brash, once they know about a service that sells child porn, the only thing that the government can do is look to arrest the people running it, and then hope that through their arrests of the admins of these forums, so they can gain access to the forum and arrest the other users, or to gain access to the website itself to bring it down. Pushing children to areas like that, and pushing adults to areas like that, is introducing so much more harm than a child seeing a tit. I'm not brushing it down to just that. Like I said, I have painful experience of what can happen, and unfortunately I have experience in who you can lose because of it. But that doesn't mean that the opposite is the best way.